This is a show that brings to the forefront newsmakers, entertainers, and those making a difference in our lives and in our world. Each week is a new adventure with topics ranging from the most serious and cutting edge to the most lighthearted and entertaining.
This is Taking Care of Business with Richard Solomon.
Greetings, everyone. Richard Solomon for My Father's Place Radio, and we are in for a real treat today. I have Bill Heller from the Rippingtons, and not only is it just an amazing thing to have him with us today, but we're going to find out about the new album called Open Road from the Rippingtons. They're also going to be playing at My Father's Place and right at the edge of the album release. So it's all really wild. So without further ado, Bill, thank you so much for spending time with us and being on the show.
Well, thanks for calling.
All right.
Thanks for having me.
All right. So you have this incredible catalog of music under your feet. You do all kinds of stuff. You've played with all kinds of people. I was fortunate enough to get a whole little inside bio stuff, and the number of people that you've played with is really a who's who of music of all kinds of genres.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Patty Austin, Mary Wilson, Smokey Robinson. Let's see, David Valentin.
Yep.
Yeah. It just all right. So, nice boy from Long Island. All of a sudden, how did you get into jazz? How did all this get started?
Well, how did I get into music? Maybe that's the best.
Okay. Well, because maybe that's the chicken and the egg question.
So my father was a conductor.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes, on the subways.
Okay.
Yeah, and
which line?
the BMT.
Okay.
Brooklyn Mass Transit. He played a little concertina. Mom's family was all Sicilian, and they used to serenade my grandmother who lived with us on the weekends.
Okay.
So myself and my brothers became musical through our influences at home. Yeah.
So I have to ask the most important question. How was the food?
The food was amazing.
I can only imagine.
Every Sunday, my mother made spaghetti and matzo balls.
Oh, really?
No, kidding.
I was going to say maybe that, I've done some celebrity cooking and cooking with musicians, and I actually had an interview with John Carter Cash, and we did some recipes from Johnny Cash's house.
Wow.
And one of them involved rabbits and squirrels.
Wow.
So it could be spaghetti and matzo balls. You never know. There's all kinds of really cool, fusion food.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So what was the food like?
Well, the food was. My mother was a great cook.
What were her specialties? If you close your eyes right now and go back to your childhood, what were the dishes that you remember on?
For sure, our Sunday dinner was always pasta and roasted chicken. So that was, always a specialty at home.
Did she use one of those rotisseries? One of the old fashioned?
No. She just roasted them in the oven.
Okay.
Good old fashioned roast them in the oven. She had lots of recipes, she could cook anything. She learned all the Jewish stuff from my father's mother. She would make all the Seder meals. We were very blessed. We grew up in a food-rich home.
So you have the greatest things going on at home. You have food and you got music.
Right.
I mean, so tell me about the synergy of all these things and where did it lead to next?
I have two brothers, so we all started studying music when I was in about third grade, and my older brother was in fourth grade. My mom thought we should have music lessons, so she took us to a local music teacher who gave us a musical aptitude test. And at the end of that test, he determined that my brother was going to play guitar, and I would play the accordion. And at that point, I said, the accordion? There's no accordion in the Beatles. But, from accordion, I moved from accordion to piano, and the rest is kind of history. So
you went to Fredonia?
Yes, I did. Started at Nassau Community College and then transferred to Fredonia.
Ah, okay. Did you have anything to do with Nassau Community College radio?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Because I know some people are on there.
Okay.
So, and you got a degree in music education?
Music education from Fredonia, and that's where I met my wife.
Okay. So is she also musical too?
Yes. She was a voice major and, music ed as well. Her instrument was voice, and she also did special ed.
Okay.
Well, not special ed, but music therapy, sorry.
And then from there, you met Russ Freeman?
Meeting Russ Freeman came quite a bit later after college. But, another interesting story. I used to play in a band around here called the Jim Pin Band. And we used to play up in Huntington at Canterbury Ales all the time. And one of the fellows that was in the band, Pat Cummings, has a guitar company called Brian Moore Guitars. And we were going to make a CD of the band just to document our original tunes and our funky little arrangements of Steely Dan tunes. And he had the idea that we should do it somehow through the guitar company, through Brian Moore. And we started doing some in-store demos to ramp up. And we did some stuff with quite a few different guitar players around the area and nationally known, which was great because we got exposure to all people like either Jimmy Vivino, Simon Townsend. That's right. Not Pete, but Simon
Pete's brother.
Townsend.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And John Abercrombie we played with, and then we did one in an in-store demo with Russ. And at the time, he complimented my keyboard playing. But when we started to record this CD for the guitar company, we had our own tunes on it, and Pat, got everybody to play on it from all those people I mentioned, John Abercrombie and Jimmy Vivino and Al Petrelli. And when he asked Russ was like, where are you going to record the CD? And he wound up saying, why don't you come to my place? So at that time, Russ was living in Colorado Springs. And we flew out to Colorado Springs, and we started recording there, and he liked the way I played. And he actually, at the time, was recording a CD with Craig Chaquico.
Is that for the Starship? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And he had me play on a couple of tracks for that, and that's how my relationship started with Russ.
Now,
from there, my first Rippington CD was Topaz.
And that was 1998?
Yep.
Okay. Now, let me just, before we get into the 1998 time frame, let's go back to that guitar store. Are there any videos that are around from that time?
Of those things?
Yeah.
I don't know. There might be, but I haven't seen any, honestly.
Okay. Are there
any? Do you know of any?
No, because I was going to say that it would be from a archaeological point of view, an amazing find.
Yeah.
Are there any still photographs from those days? Polaroids, anything?
I have some stills from the recording session we did at Russ's. I do have that.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, okay. So now you're. So what was? By the way, what was Craig like? And what was it like? Because he was.
Craig was always great. I from then on I did quite a few records with Craig. A bunch of stuff. Yeah.
Now, did you ever do anything with the Starship?
Not with Starship. No.
Okay.
By that time, Craig was already out of Starship, so that was years later.
All right. So your first recording was Topaz.
Right.
And what was that like? And what was the vibe? And was this different than what you played before?
Yes, it was different. The most interesting thing about Topaz for me was from writing that record to completion. I think Russ did it in under. It was a very fast record in under 6 to 8 weeks. And writing it to having it recording.
So
quite amazing.
Were you there to watch the writing process?
So when he called me to do that, I agreed to do the record, and he sent me his demos, which to me the amazing part was the melodies weren't on them. So I had to come up with some parts to complement what he had on his demos and replace some stuff. And then I flew out and spent about a week or so with him in his studio, which is amazing. He had an amazing place out there, faced Pikes Peak. It was just a beautiful, beautiful location. and we filled in all the blanks that were left, which was amazing. And that record, like Russ, kind of reinvents himself on every record. That record had a Native American theme. I don't know if you're familiar with the record, which was quite amazing.
Now, what is Russ's connection to Native Americans, if any?
He doesn't really have any. I don't know that he has any direct connection, but he gets influenced by different things. Like that was influenced by that. He's had a lot of influence by Latin music over the years. Things like Life in the Tropics. This new record, I mean, a couple of records back, they were influenced by orchestral music and orchestral arranging. This new one is, has so many different influences, and he just keeps evolving. But Topaz was a very interesting record for me.
How would you describe the evolution of the music? Is it has technology helped or hurt over the years? A little bit of both.
Definitely helped. It's helped. I would say it's helped, but it's an interesting process. Technology is so ingrained in us now as musicians. I mean, it's hard to get away from it unless you're real. If you can afford to be a purist these days and play only an acoustic instrument, I don't know. It seems harder and harder.
So,
but
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So what was the songwriting process like as you observed it in the beginning? Was it blank pads? Was it just playing instruments? Was it
for myself or for the Rippingtons?
Both. And how did it differ, if any?
Started out as blank pads. Yeah.
And was this cassette tapes?
What's that?
Did you use like cassette tapes to sort of kind of jot down some of the ideas, or?
Well, the blank pad being literally a piece of paper, a music paper, and you wrote out what you heard in your head, and then you would have to hand out these parts to different people to realize it. And the way that's changed now is, we could do it all on the computer these days, and which you kind of lose you lose the interaction of different people interpreting it different ways, and you come out with a different result that way than when you're all alone.
Now, do you ever do the things where you call someone up and Skype them and then try to do like a jam or something like that?
No, it would be cool, but the only thing that happens there is you get a little delay in the signal, and it doesn't quite work so well.
So the theory is a little bit better than the reality.
Yeah. Well, soon enough we'll be, we'll have that Star Trek thing, and then we'll be able to zoom in, go into each other's homes that way.
Right. So tell me about the song Silver Arrows. That's the first song on the new album.
Uh-huh.
Tell me about that.
What do you want to know about it?
What do you like? What do you love about it? Because I want to play that for us as we outro into our first break.
To me, it's got a lot of different influences. It's got a somewhat modern approach that is, this, how do I say it? Like a reggaeton in a way groove to it, but it's kind of been that groove that's been adopted by even people like Ed Sheeran, bump bump dum 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 dum, which it's Latin. It's got different influence, but the technology has really influenced those type of Latin grooves to come up with this new reggaeton kind of groove. So what else could I say about it?
All right. Well, what I could say is this is a song called Silver Arrows from the new album, and we're going to take this right into the break. So keep on listening. We'll be right back after this song kind of carries all the way through.
Hi, this is Roy Cosgrove, and you're listening to Rich Solomon on WCWP 88.1 FM.
Richard Solomon, welcome back. The song that you just heard on the way in from the break is a song called Lost Highway from the album Open Road by the Rippingtons. We're talking to Bill Heller, who is a musician extraordinaire and a real important, vibrant part of the whole world of jazz, which, you know, I kind of miss on the radio because there's really not a lot of jazz that's really out in terrestrial radio in our neck of the woods. But my father's place is definitely keeping jazz alive on Long Island. And so let's talk a little bit with Bill about that song, Lost Highway. Talk about that, if you don't mind.
Lost Highway is a pretty cool tune. Got a lot of different influences going on there between starting out with the, you know, Russ plays pedal steel guitar on that, which sounds great. And the middle sound, we like to call it, is very interesting. It gets into this whole orchestral thing with bassoons and clarinets and flutes. It's a very diverse tune. A lot of influences within one thing there. And then it ends off kind of techno. So it covers quite a gamut.
So when you're playing this music, and let's say you have a smaller stage, how do you get all of this sound to come with you when you can't bring maybe the whole army with you?
Well,
or you just
a lot of that falls on my shoulders, being the keyboard player. So years ago, it would have taken. I mean, Russ, I've heard the stories. I wasn't in the band back at the beginning, but they used to fly with literally a rack of gear that was the size of a refrigerator. And they used to literally take it not on the plane, but they used to check it with baggage. And, they toss the baggage guy, $20 to get all of this stuff on the plane. Nowadays, we have these great, powerful computers that allow me to carry more than that in a little carry-on bag. So, I've become quite adept at making my 10 fingers sound like I have 20 or 30. So I do a lot of tricky things with keyboard programming to make a lot of those sounds come out of my hands.
So let's talk about touring just for a minute. Touring has got to be both a great thing and I guess somewhat of a burden. Do you get ideas on the road, just being out there and just traveling around and having some
ideas? What kind of ideas?
For songs.
Surely. I mean, sometimes the days do are long between, if we're driving or flying someplace, we could fly in the day of the gig and basically get off the plane, go to sound check, have a sound check, have dinner, do the gig, and then, you're shot and you're off to the next one the next morning. So sometimes the days do get long that way, and there's not enough time to think about that. But the one thing about touring, when we have, like with this band, what I love is we have a lot of dates back to back because the band gets to be so tight, and it's just, we know what each other guy is thinking, and it just flows so great.
When you are touring, let's talk about the sound check, because I don't know that people really appreciate how much time goes into a sound check. I know at my father's place, I've actually been lucky enough to be in some of the really cool sound checks. And, even with things like auto-tune and things like that, I don't think that you're the kind of people that would do it.
No, not a lot of auto-tune going on.
Right. So let's talk about that, because it probably takes a good amount of time to get all your staging right, your sound to be right, to listen to from all the different perspectives, and to make sure that your on-stage speakers. Talk about that. How your monitors and how it sounds to the audience. How do you do that? Like, how does that work for you as a musician? I just know that when I sit there, it sounds amazing, but there's a lot of process way before all that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's the biggest thing is from venue to venue, the sound changes. We can't have the same equipment at every gig. So every gig is a little different that way. The speakers themselves are different. The electronic equipment they have is different. So, whether mixing boards and all that stuff, outboard gear, it's all different. So when we walk in, we have in our heads what we want to hear. So now it's, trying to get that sound out of that PA and monitor system in each different venue. So, we go through it pretty methodically. Yep. The most important stuff is the acoustic stuff on stage. So that would be the drum kit and especially the saxophone, and making sure those sound like what they're supposed to sound like. And we do travel with our own front of house engineer who does the sound for the house. As far as the monitors go, we usually use the monitor people that work at each venue, and we make sure that we are hearing what we need to hear to feel comfortable playing on stage, in order that we can do our jobs.
When you go to a venue, do you have a list of things that you would prefer to have? As part
yeah. A rider, yeah. Sure.
Yeah. Talk about that, because I don't think people know about these kinds of things. I mean, I do, because I'm an attorney, so it's always part of the contract terms and things like that.
Yeah. So I mean, we need X amount of channels of audio that we're going to supply to the house, so they have to have that much. At these days we rent, or what we call backline gear. So the drum kit is usually rented. The drummer will travel with his cymbals. I will get an 88-note keyboard. The bass player has to have a specific amplifier. And sometimes we don't get exactly what we want, so we have to have second choices. We want a certain type of quality of sound gear at each gig too. So usually we don't really run into problems with the sound gear as much as sometimes the backline gear, but it all seems to work out.
All right, and you bring your own engineer?
Yeah.
I assume that's really by necessity.
Yes. Well, it's that one extra thing, that helps us keep our sound, and ensure that we're going to sound like what we want to sound like out front. Okay.
So is it easier for you to appear like locally, since you're from Long Island and my father's place is in Long Island, that in terms of the schlep factor, you could maybe take more things?
For me, like my father's place will be nice because it is a hometown gig, so I'll be able to I'll have my keyboard, and I'll be a little more comfortable on that.
Right, because you could just take more stuff, because when you're talking about airplanes and the luggage people, I'm sure that from a musician's point of view, airlines and baggage and all that stuff, it's got to be, I don't want to say terrifying, but maybe stress inducing. To make sure that your stuff gets there.
If you have to check things, and when you get them back from the check baggage, if they're still playable, but like this run, for instance, we're starting here on Long Island, and then we do the Blue Note, and then we're up to Connecticut, down to Annapolis, Alexandria. So we're covering it all the way down to Florida on this run. So it's going to be quite a few days, and as far as the schlep is a different kind of schlep, but
yeah. Now, are you going to be filming any of this?
No, we usually don't film, but there's always people in the audience with their iPhones out.
Well, I was thinking a little bit more high grade, because my father's place is doing a television show. I should talk
really?
to yes. So I should talk to Alex about maybe getting some.
Footage,
some footage, because that would be kind of cool, because your music is so rich and so important. Speaking of, just to change topics, since we're not really scripted here, what is your familiarity with the old My Father's Place?
I went there many times, back in the day. So
who do you remember seeing?
Who do I remember seeing? Tower of Power several times. Chick Corea. I used to love how they had comedy at the beginning of the night, as an opener. And the craziest thing I saw was they're both local guys, but Bob Nelson. I don't know if you know who Bob Nelson is.
Sure. Yeah.
Bob Nelson in a comedy duo with Eddie Murphy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was.
Now, Epi does talk about Eddie Murphy. Yeah.
Yeah.
In some of our stories, about SNL and things like that.
Yeah, it was crazy, because they did like a Martin and Lewis kind of comedy skit. Very funny stuff. Who else did I see? The Brecker Brothers. You name it. So many people have gone through the old My Father's Place.
Well, what's interesting, if you go on YouTube and you look up like some of the old My Father's Place, acts from way back when, you'll see all this stuff on YouTube, and it's actually really cool, because I didn't get a chance to catch a lot of those performances, so you can actually relive a lot of that. So it's really, really cool, and it's all up there. Cool. So I mean, YouTube. So as a musician, is YouTube sort of a mixed bag for you, in the sense that it gives you exposure, but then it sort of maybe detracts from sales? How does How does that work for you in your genre?
You know, as far as that sales thing goes, you know, we're in a new age, and you can't. I think YouTube is just another outlet. I don't think things detract anymore, because the sales thing is, you know, it's a whole different ball game. You know, back in the day, you know, record companies made money by selling product, and that's what they did. They sold records, and now that records are not what they were, I mean, just simple, you know, sales of the hard copy stuff is, you know, pitiful compared to what it used to be. You know, you sold 1 million records years ago. Now, you know, you got 1 million downloads or millions of views or streams. You know, it's a different beast. So I don't look down on YouTube. I think it's a good thing as long as you get the first right of refusal on the videos that are going on.
Do you miss going to record stores?
Oh yes.
And do you still try to go from time to time to the few that are still out there?
Honestly, no. I haven't been in a record store in years.
Wow.
No.
And before we leave for this segment, how extensive is your record collection?
I have my actual vinyl collection is, you know, I don't know, maybe I have 100 maybe, but, you know, I have a lot of CDs. That's for sure.
You know what's kind of sad is that I've noticed that the newer cars no longer have CD players.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
Yeah, so that's it's like a little bit of a grab your chest of like, oh no.
Yeah. Well, this is the changing technology, you know. So, you know, either you die with the old or you embrace the new, and you know.
I guess it's a brave new world. All right, speaking of new worlds, we're with Bill Heller of the Rippingtons, and they'll be playing at my father's place. Now, if you're catching this show in the future, then you missed it, but they'll be back. I'm sure Epi will have them back again and again. So we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Keep it locked in at My Father's Place Radio.
Hey, this is Johnny Rulo, and you're listening to Richie Solomon on 88.1 FM WCWP.
Now that song is called Open Road. This is Richard Solomon on My Father's Place Radio in the studio with Bill Heller of the Rippingtons. And one of the things I have to ask is, if the new album is called Open Road, the first track is called Silver Arrows, which we played. Why didn't this get the lead the lead in?
Well, when you go out for a steak dinner, you don't have steak right away. You have appetizers, maybe a drink. You warm up to the main course. Okay, so then is something like Tangerine Skyline the coffee? It's a rocking piece of coffee, a cup of coffee there.
There you go. So let's talk a little bit. So you were talking a little bit about your set list. So what will you be playing at My Father's Place?
We're going to play quite a bit of the new record. Probably, I would say a good 80% of the new record we're playing.
Wow. So why don't you share with us what the set list comprises, so that if people are actually listening to on the way in.
Do you want the whole set list, or what we're playing from the new record?
Some highlights.
Wild Tales, which is always, that was from the last record, Wild Tales, which is a fun tune. The highlights from the new record, Follow the Stars, which is a great tune. Going back to classics like Herbs Ahead or Morocco. Road Warriors, which is always a fun, energetic tune. We do a little Latin set. We're going to hear some Tangerine Skyline in there.
That's the coffee.
Yeah. We're going to get the coffee, and then the main course is going to be served up right away. The Open Road. We're going to play that one, boy.
All right, cool. All right, so shifting gears, I noticed that you work with the Long Island Music Hall of Fame.
Yes.
Talk about that, because that's a very important yet not well publicized group.
Yeah, Long Island Music Hall of Fame. I've done probably 5 or 6 of their award shows as in the musical director chair, and got to see some amazing shows and award shows, and play with some amazing people on those shows as well.
So talk about that a little bit, because I think I was it 2007? It was Joan Jett. It was Joan Jett. It was Eddie Money.
Yeah. Where was it?
Oheka Castle.
Oheka Castle, yes. That was a smaller band for me. Lou Reed, John Zorn, Al Cooper that year as well.
Yes. And I think Steve Roosevelt had his book on My Father's Place that year. Yeah. I
think Epi probably got something.
I think Epi was there. In fact, I remember he was wearing like a suit. He looked very dapper.
Yep.
Yeah. Because I think they were autographing the book. I think they only made several hundred copies of the book, and they autographed them. So it was a limited edition, and it had a CD of sort of unreleased tunes or tunes that haven't been heard in a long time. And I think it included things like Weather Report and Muddy Waters, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow. Yeah, quite a few people came to My Father's Place, boy.
So talk about the Long Island Music Hall of Fame in its current iteration, and what you do there as a musical director. What's coming up?
Well, I mean, we just had a show in last November. Unfortunately, I couldn't be there because I was out with the Rips.
Okay.
But the guys played. They inducted Jimmy Webb,
who plays at My Father's Place.
Yeah, Jimmy. Yeah, I got to do some stuff with Jimmy. He's a great writer, amazing guy. What a history there. Yeah. The year, I think the one before that was really cool too. Johnny and Santo, right, from Sleepwalk. You know the song Sleepwalk?
No, I don't.
That was an instrumental back from the late 50s, early 60s. So many great people. I got to play that year was Vince Giordano from the Nighthawks. You know Vince Giordano at all?
Okay, that I've heard of, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Steve Vai.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
In fact, there in our office at My Father's Place is a poster in which Steve Vai is one of the people who autographed it. So that's kind of cool. And I think we're trying to get some kind of rock guitar legends, all in one showcase or something like that.
Oh, great.
So, yeah.
Have to have Leslie West there, too.
Yeah. In fact, what's interesting is, we have these meetings where we talk about, who's available, and it's interesting. It's a whole interesting process because sometimes, you want to get people while they're on tour and they can't really make it in, and there's other people who it's like, well, you got to get them on the back end of something or whatever. But one thing that we've been very, very fortunate with is that people have loved the venue and the sound so much that we've actually had a lot of people want to come back saying, I love the sound. I loved, it was very comfortable. It's very intimate. The space, have you been to the space yet? It's a great space.
No, I haven't been to my father's place you're talking about.
Right.
You got to watch when you say the space now, because
not the space, our space. So a lot of times I talk to people like, I say my father's place, and they're like, "Who's your father?"
yeah. I had that yesterday with somebody.
I mean, your father's place?
Yeah.
Actually, I don't want to give away something too funny, but there was a scene in the test show that we did, the first show for the TV show, and there were two comedians. They were very funny, and they were saying, "Well, my father's place," and then they go, "Your father's place?" No, I thought it was my father. And apparently they had the same father. And then it takes a pan shot back to Epi, who's at the end of the bar, and he's kind of waving. They go, "Daddy?" So from an inside joke point of perspective, it's really, really quite funny. So we're actually in production for all that stuff. And,
great.
And then what we do is, one of the things that I do is a lot of the people who perform in the TV show I interview, and then we try to sort of make a whole little thing. It's almost like a music ecosystem where we have the artists on television, then we have them perform, and then we do the radio, and then the podcast and all the other stuff. And what that does is, unlike other venues, we can actually really help promote artists and really get like what we're doing now, which is we're getting all your music out to all the people out there on FM.
That's great.
And what's cool is, our antenna is in the right zone for my father's place's, core audience. And it's just nice to have great music and great inside stories from people about the music process, about sound checks, about collaborations, about their other ventures. Because you're not just a musician; you're really you're an enterprise. You have to do things in marketing and tour management and travel arrangements and and music technology and recording science and all the things that keep you. In the mix. So in the little bit of time that we have left, because great music and great radio kind of go really fast, let's talk about some of the people that you've played with and what was that like? I mean, you played with Smokey Robinson.
I was fortunate enough to play with Smokey. He's such a humble guy, really cool, just amazing. When you think about his legacy and how much music he wrote for the Motown era and beyond, it's just flabbergasting. It's a breath away. And
then let's see, you have Mary Wilson from the Supremes.
Yeah, I had some of my craziest gigs with Mary. I mean, I literally all around the world, Bangladesh, Oman, Pakistan, South Africa, you name Mozambique, Botswana. Yes.
Every place you can't get to with a car.
Yeah.
What was it like getting all the equipment through all these various customs?
Well,
checkpoints?
Not much stuff went on that trip. I basically had a laptop. That was all I had.
Okay. I was going to say, because, I'm sure that U.S. travel, maybe buses and trucking and things like that, present one set of issues. But then when you start going in international travel, and you're going through customs and people looking inside everything, and you're like, please don't detune my music. That kind of thing. Let's see. I see here that you also played for the show Moving Out.
Yes.
Let's talk about it. So let's hear a little bit about Broadway.
I mean, unfortunately, Moving Out was not the Broadway experience most musicians have. A lot of people have heard that, Broadway musicians, they learn the book so well that they sit in a pit and they read a newspaper, and every once in a while they pick up their horn and play. But Moving Out was, we were featured as a band on stage. I was just a sub on the show. I wasn't didn't have the chair. But it was a rock and roll band with a ballet going on underneath us, and it was a load of fun. The guys were a blast. We had a lot of fun on that show.
And why don't you talk a little bit about Hot Feet?
Hot Feet was a short-lived musical that was based on the music of Earth, Wind & Fire, and the book was written off, I believe it's the Red Shoe Diary by Hans Christian Andersen, am I right? About, these enchanted shoes or that the girl puts on and she can't stop dancing.
Okay. That's
Do you know the story?
No, I do not know the story. No.
Yeah. And it's there was it's quite a, it was the story and the music were great, but somehow they didn't go together well in the show. So it only lasted less than a year, but it was great. Great band, great music.
Do you have any future projects going on Broadway or anything that you'd like to share with
myself?
Everybody? Yeah.
Oh, Broadway? Nothing on Broadway for me right now, but there's always something new coming out. Hopefully, my son will be on Broadway soon.
So you want to give a quick plug?
A plug to my son Jonathan. My son Jonathan is a graduate of Eastman School of Music, and now he's doing his master's at NYU. And he's getting ready to graduate from NYU. He just made it into a pretty big deal vocal competition, which will be held up at the Eastman School of Music in Rochester, and it's called the Lottie Lenya competition, and it started out with well over 200 people from all around the world, and he made the finals. One of 14 people who's going to be in this competition, which is pretty cool.
Good luck to him.
Very excited for him.
Good luck to him. So,
yep.
In the few moments we have left, tell me about the Jazz Cat.
The Jazz Cat.
Yes.
Russ picked up on the Jazz Cat many years ago when the band first started. I think the first drawing of the Jazz Cat was actually for a jazz festival in Atlanta, an Atlanta Jazz Festival. And I think Russ saw the poster or was on the festival and loved it so much that he sought out the artist, and the artist is Bill Mayer, Mayer, and he's drawn every album cover for the Rippingtons since then. And he always finds his way into different things, whether it's Let It Rip was a golf theme, Topaz was a Native American theme, Open Road obviously is him on a Harley riding down the road. I have a bunch of sketches he did in my room here that he did for our CD Wild Card. So he draws up like a bunch of different concepts. Russ usually has a concept in mind, and then he tells Bill what he's thinking of. So like Wild Card, there's different things like playing cards and all kinds of crazy things he comes up with. He's an amazing artist, just amazing.
Well, speaking of amazing artists, in the last minute we have, I have to tell the people out there listening, if you actually look at Bill Heller's discography, it's extensive. You're on so many albums.
Thank you.
Engineer, guest artist, keyboards, audio production, piano, soloist,
and my own record too.
Right, and it just goes on and on and on, and all the different people. So for all of you out there, you really need to get to know Bill Heller more. In fact, it was an honor for me to get to know him in this brief moment of time. And if you get a chance, go see him with the Rippingtons and other musical endeavors out there.
Yes.
I can't thank you enough for your time today.
Thank you, Richard.
And I love your music, and I'll be out there cheering and hollering.
Great. I'll see you on March 21st, right?
There you go. All right. So for all of those out there, we'll see you next time.